Perfect. And a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining us today, whether it's for the first time or whether you've been here before, you are very welcome. We are live on today's Live Well Live webinar, and we're going to be talking all about what to eat because this is such an important story. It's such an important thing to wrap our heads around. And it really is quite simple. And I think we get a lot of conflicting advice. So we want you to bear with us to go through the process of thinking about what to eat and to really put some sort of attention to this today. We also invite you to bring any of your weight loss orientated questions along to our webinars. So please do pop those straight into the Q&A box. If you can see it, you should be able to find the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. So please do pop any questions you've brought along in there, or if for any reason you can't find that, you're welcome to put them into the chat box and we will do our best to find them. Just to let you know, we have a few slides that we will share with you all around the subject of food and what we would recommend that you think about eating predominantly. And then we will come to your questions at the end of those slides. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor, also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach, and have really been working in the whole health arena for all of my career, and really been focusing on the lifestyle medicine side of this world for the last 10 to 15 years. So really love the opportunity to meet with you every week and to share and to support you on your weight loss journeys. For your purpose, you can be anywhere in your journey, and we'll be checking in with you shortly as to find out where you are in your journeys. You can be on a weight loss medication. Equally, you're very welcome to be here if you're not. This is not specifically for those on weight loss medications. It's for anyone really who is on this journey. And I'm very happy to be joined today by my colleague Sanam, who's going to introduce herself. And also we have Julia here helping us with any IT glitches and sharing any resources that may be helpful to you. So Sanam, over to you. Very warm welcome to you.
You. So I'm Sanam. I'm one of the senior independent prescribers here at Boots Online Doctors and also a weight loss service lead. So I've been doing everything weight loss for I think a good 3, 4 years now with the Boots Online Doctors. So really excited to, emphasize what diet can do and what we should be eating as part of our weight loss journeys that we're going to be taking. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Great, thanks, Sanam. Great. So, as normal, we're going to start off with a quick accountability check-in. We know we've just navigated Christmas and New Year, so it'd be really interesting to hear any reflections or learnings that you've come across. I am feeling a sense of absolute determination, and I think what I've decided is that I just need to wake up in that sense of determination every morning now. For the whole year. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but that is what I'm heading for. So yeah, wins can be very small. It's not necessarily about the fact that you have lost weight or maintained your weight, or even whether you've gained weight. It's just about showing up, and well done for being here today. I can see we have a lot of people in the audience, so that shows a certain level of determination that this is going to be helpful, hopefully, to you in some way. So, what's gone on for you over this last week? So, Gada, you're saying you didn't eat enough protein and found yourself snacking more, which is not great. But actually, do you know what? It is great because do you know what you've learned is actually if you eat more protein, you're going to snack less. So that's one of our key messages. So you've already nailed it in your understanding. So well done. Very happy to be back. Happy enjoyed Christmas, have been back on plan and the gym since the 27th. Well done to TM. That is fantastic news. Charlotte, you got your goal weight. I think you were here last week and you just had a very small amount of weight to lose. So well done. You have nailed 7.5 stones weight loss. That is utterly tremendous. How long did that take us? Tell us a little bit more about your journey. I imagine it wasn't just a linear journey. Did you have ups and downs? Let's have some encouragement for other people who are here today. A non-scale victory. My rings that I haven't been able to wear for years finally fit again. That's so lovely, Claudia. Well done. Julia, a win for you is adding more fibre into your breakfast with chia seeds. Well done. Sadie, I was snacking more. No, I need to plan my meals and build my plate and structure way. Well, we are here and that's what we're all about today. So well done. Um, couple of people I know stopped the jabs for a couple of weeks over Christmas. Is this a good idea? We wouldn't recommend that, to be honest. So I've started Monjaro last night, and this is my first webinar, all new to you. Very warm welcome to you. So I'm not going to read all your comments. I'll come back to those in a little while because I feel like they're brilliant comments. Really lovely to hear from you all, and well done. So good to hear what you're learning about yourselves and also this whole journey. So we're going to start with this quick poll. What is feeling trickiest for you now? There's no right or wrong answers on our polls. This is really just for us to gauge the temperature in the room, to understand where you're at, what's going on for you today, this week, right now. What is the trickiest thing? This is completely anonymous. There's no right or wrong answers. We don't know who's answering what. We just know that people are answering the poll. So we've got about 50% of you answered so far. So just leave it there for a couple more seconds. See if we can get that up to over 70%. That would be really nice. So I can see from your answers that the hardest thing that people are finding is meal planning. And actually, Sanan and I have been talking about creating a meal planning webinar. So I think I have started writing that, and I will hopefully we'll bring that to you in the next couple of months once we've got that finalized and can fit it into the schedule. So somebody's saying, lots of people are saying too many treats around, making it harder. Yep, that can be the case. Have a think about what you might do with those. Are you going to package them up, give them away, eat them, get rid of them? There's no right or wrong, is there? It's about you, what's right for you. So evening snacking, cravings, all right. It's really good to know what's going on for you guys. So thank you so much for sharing. Right, let's do a little deep dive into this whole webinar about what we eat and why it's important. I'm going to talk a little bit about this graph now that you can see on your screen, which is all about thinking about how we eat and how it sustains our energy, how it sustains our mood, how it sustains our blood sugar. So if you can see, you've got two graphs on the screen on the slide. We have the red side. So let's talk about this first. This is really comparing what happens when our blood sugars are balanced to when our blood sugar is less balanced. So on the right side of the screen, this is really relevant to you, to those of you who are really struggling with hunger, with cravings, with needing to eat frequently. So this is what is happening probably for you. This is all about blood sugar dysregulation. So when we eat foods that are high in sugar or processed foods, we will find that we're going to have much more blood sugar dysregulation. We'll have a rapid increase in our blood glucose levels, and this will make us feel initially probably quite good. Our digestion will break down that food very quickly, and the sugar comes into our bloodstream very quickly. So we'll feel a sense of energy, we'll feel a little bit uplifted, we'll feel like we've got that energy and sort of drive to carry on. What happens then is that our insulin has to respond. So the pancreas responds to the rise in blood glucose by releasing a hormone called insulin, and this helps us to absorb glucose from our blood. Insulin enables cells either to use glucose for energy or to store it as glycogen in the liver and muscles. And if the cells have enough energy and the glycogen stores are full, the excess glucose gets stored as fat. This is really important, and something for anyone on a weight loss journey is really worth understanding. When your blood sugar is up high, as you can see at the peak over here on the graph on the right-hand side, you'll then end up with a crash. So after the spike in blood glucose, our insulin causes our blood levels of glucose to drop, and this can lead to a crash in our sort of blood sugar levels. And this can make us feel quite fatigued, irritable, hungry, or even give us cravings for more sugar. This is quite a problem. We often find people are on this roller coaster across the course of the day. This process across the course of the day, as you can say, you then go into maybe eating another snack because you're feeling so awful. You feel a bit hungry, angry, tired, cravings. Really difficult to ignore those feelings, I would say. So you reach for something to make you feel better. Understandable, completely understandable. But the problem is you'll have a rise again and a following crash. With this continued pattern over several days or over several weeks or over the long term can lead to an increased risk of something called insulin resistance. So high amounts of sugar can lead to insulin resistance. This is when our cells become less responsive to insulin because they're having to have this reaction very regularly, our body finds it harder to keep creating the same response at the same level. So we have to produce more insulin to get that blood sugar managed. And this is a precursor to type 2 diabetes and to all sorts of inflammatory metabolic disorders. We also know that this is one of the key causes of weight gain. So, this constant cycle, this constant bouncing up and down in terms of your energy, your cravings, your mood, your hunger, is going to be the problem. This is why we have created our core meal plan. So, if you're following eating in a way that is our core meal plan, which we're going to go through in a minute with you, it will really help you to balance out those peaks and troughs. You will end up being a little bit more like over on this green side of the chart, where your energy is more balanced across the course of the day, your mood becomes balanced, your cravings become less consistently there. You will just find that things begin to steady out. Energy becomes slowly released, and you will feel a sense of continuous energy over longer periods of time. You'll find that you don't need to reach for those snacks to give you that boost. So we'll talk about the foods. I'm not going to go into them now because otherwise we'll be repeating ourselves the whole session, which I'm sure you'd find really boring. But we're now going to go into those foods. So we really want to be thinking about this as our core eating plan. And we're going to share the link, Julia, if you don't mind sharing the link to the core eating plan, that would be really good. We're also just checking in so we can be really relevant for the people who are here, where you are in terms of your weight loss journey. It doesn't matter. Again, it's totally anonymous. We just need it's really helpful to us. So when we answer your questions or when we give you some information, it can make it relevant to you. So I can see we're creeping up with our people who are maintaining. So that's really good to see. I'm very warm welcome to you. Getting this process and this understanding in your heads at this stage is just as important for you as it is when you're starting out on a weight loss journey or when you're midway through. We often find people who are midway through almost like lose that whole focus in a way. You sort of feel complacent and that you're getting there and you can stop thinking quite so hard. And it's worth just refreshing, isn't it? I think, and just thinking through where you're at, what you're doing, what you could do a little bit more of, what you could do a little bit less of, and what's going to make a difference. So, Sanam, over to you.
Great. So if you haven't done so already, I would just recommend that you start by downloading the Boots Online Doctor Core Meal Plan. That will give you sort of an outline of the focus or what foods you should focus on. It's got really useful sort of meal builder in there as well, which we've talked about a little bit, touched on a little bit earlier, that some people are having a bit of trickies with. And what it does, it adapts around your preferred eating styles and, with a real emphasis on real foods. Um, it does sort of help you to aim to eat 2 to 3 meals a day and reduce those snackings, again, that a lot of us are probably struggling with at the moment. It's not designed to be overly restrictive, so we don't want you to be hungry throughout the day. So that's not the aim. It's to, we'll start making a plan with all the information that we give you in our webinar series and, all those important factors that you should consider that will help you achieve that successful long-term weight loss. What it touched on was real food, so that also helps in feeding that gut microbiome. So there's a lot of new research that's emerging that a healthy gut microbiome does help with weight loss. So eating these sort of real foods as part of this plan does really help with that as well. It's important that you see any changes that you make as part of a long-term plan rather than a short-term fix. It's quite easy to sort of, jump into a plan without sort of having a lot of thought around it and just sort of trying to achieve those sort of short-term weight loss goals. But if you fail to plan, you are less likely to succeed, unfortunately. So we do really, hope that everybody sort of starts thinking about and sort of planning what they want to eat around what we're going to discuss today. And we know it can take a bit of time to establish these dietary changes, and it's not going to be easy, and it will require a lot of motivation on your part. But we are here for those rainy day moments. We're here to help support you. And, we've got loads of information, like I said, on our webinar series to help with that as well. So what you want to do is achieve that slow and steady weight loss, which gives that positive impact on your metabolism. So today we're going to talk about the core meal plan. And don't need to brace yourself. It's not going to, if any of you are bracing yourself or any rules or restrictions, you can relax. This approach is about simplicity and just making those new sustainable habits and having that steady progress. It's not about perfection or rapid weight loss. We want to have that steady, slow, sustainable weight loss that you're going to be able to maintain in the long term. We're going to kick off by talking about protein. So, protein in itself is vital to our cellular health and it's a part of every cell and, lots of chemical reactions that happen in your body. So, meeting that protein requirement is key to our healthy eating plan. Helps with satiety and also muscle strength. So, it'll help you feel a bit, fuller for longer. And if there's one thing you want to prioritize as part of your meal plan is protein. So we recommend that you aim for around about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Split that across 3 meals. So for example, if you take an easy number, if you weighed 100 kilos, you want to have 100 grams of protein throughout the day. If you split that across each meal, it's around about 33 grams of protein. It doesn't have to be exact. It's not, it's just roughly you want to split that across your different meals. That will help keep that energy balance that we talked about earlier and helping keeping those blood sugar levels stable. It also helps stop that snacking as well because you'll be fuller for a little bit longer. Having a good portion of protein with each meal really helps support that blood sugar balance. And it's also, as Ruth mentioned earlier about the insulin sensitivity, high protein, dietary protein diets does support insulin sensitivity. So I'll give you a few examples of healthier. So if you're a meat eater, a few examples of proteins, healthier proteins that you can eat will be like chicken, turkey, Greek yogurt. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, you want to focus on tofu, quinoa, beans, lentils, edamame beans. And variety is essential. Again, touched on the gut microbiome before, so variety in the foods that you eat as part of the real foods that you eat as part of this meal plan do help with the gut microbiome as well. So it's essential that you have a bit of variety in your food, so variety in the plate that you do create. So if you are a meat eater, just make sure you do include some vegetarian sources as well. So it's not just about eating meat as protein all the time.
Absolutely. It's so important to be thinking about that. One of the areas that we all get a little bit confused about, or we find that people generally feel quite confused about, is that whole subject of dietary fat. Whether we should be eating it, whether we need to avoid it. We're all a little bit different in terms of our tolerance for dietary fat. So some people may find they can tolerate dietary fat better than others. But what we're talking about here is a fat that we need to obtain from our diet. So when we're thinking about the omega-3 rich fats, the only way that we can actually get these is if we eat them. And they're really important for our cellular health. So they really help in terms of us getting those messages in and out of our cells and keeping the cell structure, the wall structure of the cells, really malleable so that messages can come in and out. And if you think about it, we're just a chemical network. We're constantly sending messages in and out of our cells. We're moving hormones around our body. We want things to work in our body really well. We want our biochemical processes to work well for us. So actually the food we eat can make all of the difference. So the healthy fats become really important. I often find when I talk to people that fish is one of the foods that they're not naturally drawn to eating. In fact, quite a lot of people seem to have a bit of an aversion, but really, really recommend that you start thinking about, okay, I need to get some of these into my diet somehow. So let's just start somewhere. So those omega-3 oily fish, which are rich in omega-3, we want to be thinking about things like salmon, sardines, herring, trout, mackerel. We know that the ones that are farmed have less of the omega-3 fats in them, so we want to be going for the non-farmed sources as much as we possibly can. They do tend to be the more expensive sources, but you can look for the frozen options, which are often available in the supermarkets of the non-farmed sources. Also think about your healthier fats from your polyunsaturated fats, so things like nuts and seeds and their oils, so and also avocados. These are really important. We know that eating too many saturated fats can be one of the factors that can cause inflammation in our bodies. And for each and every one of us, inflammation is a key underpinning factor in health related problems such as heart disease, cancers, bowel disease, and also just inflammatory joint conditions as well. So it can be really helpful if you've got a lot of inflammation going on, or if you're insulin resistant, to really be thinking about where those healthy fats are coming from. We'd recommend, in terms of the oily fish, maybe having a couple of portions a week. But if there's something that you're not familiar with or not keen on, just start with that one portion and see how you get on and gradually build it up. It can be really helpful. And maybe just drizzling a little bit of olive oil over your food once it's cooked, again, can be something that would bring in some of those healthier fats for you. And then I know we talk a lot about protein, but the other really great thing for helping us to feel full and to really support that gut microbiome as well are our vegetables. And I guess we should put fruit with the vegetables, but I always want to put the emphasis on the vegetables because we can choose a multitude of vegetables. We want to be thinking about the colour in those vegetables, bringing lots of different colours to our plates. That will bring a variety of fibre, vitamins, minerals, and also the phytonutrients, the really healthy nutrients that come from these vegetables. Obviously, how we eat them, how we cook them, how we prepare them will make a difference to that. But just again, if there's something you're not familiar with, or you have sort of like, I know that we all get a little bit stuck in a rut. We tend to buy the same foods. We tend to eat very much out of habit. So if vegetables are one of the things that you have got into a bit of a rut with, it's really worth just thinking, can I get out of that rut? Are there vegetables I haven't had for a while? When I'm in the supermarket, could I just buy one thing that is a little bit different and brings a different colour to my plate? It's really worth thinking about that. So you want to be thinking about cabbage, kale, broccoli, all of those things, the sort of above ground vegetables. The vegetables have less of the sugars in naturally. Things like potatoes you can eat in moderation, and just make it the smaller part of your plate. So maybe something like two or three of the salad potatoes or new potatoes, or a small sweet potato. And then if you want an old potato, maybe try and leave the skin on because again, it's got more fibre. So in terms of fullness and health for our gut microbiome, that's great. And always make sure you're combining in those healthy fats and the protein as well. We've shared, I think, the link to the core meal plan, haven't we? And if not, yes, we have. So great. So please do take a look at that and download it. And then you can keep that as a sort of aid memoir or something to remind you over the next week in case you want a reminder. And then we're going to look a little bit about whole grains. Sanan, you're muted, sorry.
Muted, yeah, it's all right. Yeah, so whole grain. So these again are a vital part of our healthy and nutritious diet. So they behave really differently to our body compared to refined grains. So a lot of the nutrients you do get are in the whole grains themselves. So grains are the seeds of grass-like plants, for example, wheat, rice, and corn. So when you go out shopping, what you want to see is whole grain or 100% whole on the packets of what you buy as the first ingredient. So some of the important nutrients they give us would be fiber, vitamins, minerals, and sort of other nutrients like iron, magnesium, selenium, B vitamins. So obviously when you are on a weight loss diet, there might be things that you want to consider that you want to make sure you keep those nutrient levels up as well. So it could be a lot of people who are on weight loss sort of programs and stuff do end up sort of lapsing on some of those nutrients. So it's really important that you keep these in your diet. So as well as being a vital source of sort of slow release energy for our cells and our day-to-day energy, whole grain foods are also help to regulate our cholesterol levels. So oats specifically are good for helping regulate those cholesterol levels and help with your blood pressure. Eating regularly can help also reduce the risk of diabetes and heart disease. Um, some examples that we have are sort of like oats, wheat, rye, quinoa, bulgur, barley, brown rice. What we want to encourage is for you to keep starchy carbohydrates low, a bit like what Ruth mentioned before. So like that's the potatoes, rice, pasta, cereal, and include small amounts of the previously mentioned slow releasing grains into your diet. So what we'd recommend is a 1 cup with each main meal that you have. So that should help even out some of your plate there. And a lot of these you can incorporate into sort of like, if it, stuff like oats, replace things that you have at breakfast with things like that. And maybe if you're already used to having white rice, you can replace it with sort of quinoa, bulgur. There's sort of like good ideas to sort of replace some of what you're having already. So it's not completely new to you, but sort of replacing some things on your plate that you're already used to.
Yeah, just making those simple switches can make such a difference in terms of your energy. It's really worth giving a go. And then don't forget hydration. It's so important and often overlooked. And we know that being well hydrated can be one of the factors that can really support weight loss and also loss of body fat, which is the key when we're wanting to lose weight. We want to be thinking about reducing our body fat level. So hydration has been found to help with this. A research study done in 2022 found that drinking 1 or 2 glasses of water before a meal can really help in terms of your feeling of fullness and also in terms of how much you eat. Another piece of research I read suggested that drinking something like 500 mils with each meal was really significant in terms of helping to maintain and support that weight loss. There are all sorts of suggested amounts of fluid that you should drink, but it really depends on you and your health and whether you have any other underlying health conditions as to how much you should drink, and also the medications that you do or don't take. So, really have a think about yourself and whether you need some personalized support or advice around that. Generally, what we would recommend is that you use your urine almost as your barometer so that you're aiming for that sort of really pale straw colored urine as much as possible as your sort of barometer that actually you're drinking enough and that your body is adequately hydrated. The other thing that you can look at is something called your sort of turgor. So it's when you pinch the back of the skin on your hand, whether it falls back into place quite quickly. If it does, that's a good indication. Here I am pinching the back of my hand, just checking. But it's a good indication of whether you're properly hydrated at that time. So again, it's worth experimenting and just seeing what's going on for you. We know it can really support your weight loss journey as much as possible. We don't want you to overhydrate either. So that can really affect your electrolyte balance. So really just be very cautious. If you're somebody who's drinking very little and one of your aims is to drink more, I would really recommend that you build up the amount that you drink gradually over a period of a few days or a week or so, rather than going hell for leather and going from zero to hero overnight. Generally, if we do that, it can make us feel a little bit unwell. And other things that you can experiment with are things like kombucha, and we generally don't recommend squashes. There's a really nice product on the market called Water Drop, which seems to be a way of adding flavour to water without adding any of the nasties that we want to avoid. And you can also get water bottles that have a smell. Zanam, you know about these that have a smell associated with them, so you can almost smell something. So you're sort of almost disguising the fact that you're drinking water. And you can also get those water bottles with canisters where you can add a little bit of fruit just to flavour the water. So we'd really recommend you think about that as an option going forwards. So, yeah, see how you get on. And then think about this whole eating for maintenance. Really, the advice is very much along the same lines as everything that we talk about on your weight loss journeys. And I guess the key for us is we want you to learn new habits while you're on your weight loss journeys that will hold you for life, really and truly. Learn to love the foods that love you back, because actually, when you love those, it isn't a chore anymore. It's just part and parcel of everyday life. Maintenance isn't a new plan, it's simply about keeping the routines that have helped you to achieve that weight loss. So, Charlotte, I know you've lost your 7.5 stone. This is really important. And for everyone else who's here in that maintenance phase, well done to getting there. This is how you stay there. We know there will be ups and downs. It's okay. You're allowed to have an occasional slip up. Even when you're on a weight loss journey, you can have a treat occasionally. This isn't about being perfect. It's about thinking about that 80% rule, working out what it is that's going to help your body stay strong and keep it where you want it to be. And if you take one thing from today, let protein at meal times and regular hydration be your absolute sort of mantras, I would say. That would be where I'm at for you. So, your key take home messages, Sanam, over to you.
Sorry. So think I've lost my paper. Yeah. So eat to balance your blood sugars, which was our very first slide because it's really important that we try and help balance those blood sugar levels to avoid us being hungry throughout the day and having the spikes and stuff in your blood glucose levels, which again can lead to insulin sensitivity. Eating real foods, as discussed, having that variety in your diet as well as eating the real foods to help with that gut microbiome will all be beneficial to your sort of long-term weight loss goals. And very importantly, keep yourself hydrated. So, as I've gone into detail about hydration and the importance of it, and it's always something that's sort of overlooked. So we have a poll. So we're going to do a poll. So what one change this week are you going to focus on? So that'd be quite interesting to sort of see after, this webinar, all the things that we've discussed, what one change would you like to focus on?
Brilliant, perfect. Thanks for managing that, Julia. So what are you going to do differently? Again, completely anonymous. What's important to you? And I guess our advice is try not to do, unless you're somebody who can do 101 new things all at once and make a success of it. Don't overwhelm yourself. I think just do one or two things that make sense to you right now, whether it's getting to grips with having a healthier breakfast, whether it's making sure you stop snacking in the evenings. It really doesn't matter. What are you going to do differently? What's important to you? I can see about 70% of you who are here now have answered, and actually, a lot of you are going to be working on including more protein and drinking how much increasing the amount of water you drink. So that's really great to hear. And stop eating after dinner. I think for me personally, that's quite a big change that I need to put back in place. I was doing that fine, and Christmas and New Year, it's sort of like gone out the window a bit, really. Those little sneaky snacks that hang around have been creeping back in. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. And come back next week and let us know how you get on with that. So, talking of next week, this is what we've got coming up over the next few weeks in terms of our webinars. We're going to be talking all about mindset for your sort of healthy weight loss makeover next week. That's really important for you, whether you're on a weight loss journey at the beginning or in the middle or in that maintenance phase. Mindset is absolutely crucial. Then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about food. We're going to talk about how to eat to lose weight, because actually the how we eat is almost as important as the what we eat. So that's a really important webinar. And then we're going to be looking at anything that you can do to support your metabolism. So that's what's coming up in January. So we're going to stop sharing the screen now. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And we are going to come to your questions. We'll go to the Q&A box first, I think, and then we will come over to the chat box. Okay. So for top of the questions, two things. How do I monitor my health on Manjaro, and is it safe for long-term use?
Monitoring your health. If you mean by sort of, we don't normally recommend that you need to have any sort of blood test or anything like that. So it's not a recommendation we normally give if you're on Manjaro. So monitoring your health, I suppose, you do with how you're feeling. So how you're feeling when change your foods that you're eating, or how you're feeling when you're on Manjaro. And like we said about the hydration as well, are you hydrated enough? Test the elasticity of your skin. There's no specific way to monitor your health. It really does have to do with how you feel. So are you feeling quite tired? Are you feeling that you haven't got energy? Maybe you need to change what you're eating and implement different dietary things into your meals to help you feel better. A lot of people report, that they are feeling better, and it's not always to do with just that you've lost weight, but it's actually to do with what you're eating as well. And just making sure that you are eating all the nutrients. So we do also say, if you're on a sort of weight loss plan, we do recommend sort of a vitamin multivitamin as well, which will help keep your sort of vitamin consistency. But we do hope that you try and get majority of your vitamins from the foods that you're eating, because there is sufficient foods and calories and nutrients there that you can be having to help you feel, keep you healthy. If there's sort of specific concerns that you do have around your health, we do recommend that you speak to your doctor in case there's any other sort of underlying causes. But generally, it's really about making sure that you keep a variety in that diet with all the nutrients and minerals that you should be getting.
Yeah, definitely. I agree entirely. One thing we do recommend for anybody who's taking a weight loss medication is to take a multivitamin and mineral. And that's just sort of the recommendation generally from the NICE guidelines. And just what Sanam was saying, just the energy. If you wake up in the morning and you feel a sense of energy, great. That's a really good indicator that you're doing well. Um, absolutely. So see how you go. It's that vitality that we're all looking for, isn't it? Somebody's saying that they really struggle to get protein in their diet. They're vegetarian, but their partner is allergic to legumes, which is quite difficult then for you, isn't it? I guess it depends on the degree of allergy. Can you have them in the house and have them when you're eating meals on your own, or is it that you just can't have them in the house at all? I would suggest that you need to be thinking as broadly as you possibly can and really look and think about what you're prepared to do to hit those protein requirements. We do have protein sheets. So, Julia, can you share the protein and food sheets? And actually, that's a really helpful way of just checking in and seeing how much protein you get from the various food sources. You don't need to be weighing things out, but it just gives you a sense of perspective. You may want to think about a protein powder, say some pea protein, maybe something that you would want to consider using as sort of augmenting what you're eating. Are you good with tofu? Is tofu something that you can have? That's a really great source of protein, so you may want to be using that a little bit more than we would generally recommend. And just really thinking about the nuts as well, whether you can really maximize your intake of nuts that you could share. So that might be something to do. And whether you can eat separately from your partner and whether that's feasible for maybe one meal a day, which would really open up the sort of options for you. I'm not sure if that's going to be relevant. So let us know. Anything you'd want to add to that, Sanam?
No, I think you covered. I mean, it is quite difficult when you have sort of like the allergens and then there's sort of certain foods that you can't eat. And if you're vegetarian as well, that, altogether, stuff like breakfast, chia seeds and things like that might be quite helpful when you're thinking about a variety in what you're having. I think that protein sheet that you mentioned, Ruth, if you have actually looked at that, it's actually got quite a lot, quite extensive actually. Quite like that sheet myself because it helps sort of you can pick things out from there that you might use to make a whole meal, and it's not about only eating protein, remember. So we're just trying to pick out certain amounts of protein to sort of get those grams, like we mentioned before, in. So try and see what you can use in there and sort of work around that really.
Brilliant. Okay. Somebody's asking if it's possible for weight loss or weight gain to be delayed, that they don't see an immediate change in the scales, whether they're expecting things to be good or less good. I think that's the whole point here is weight loss isn't linear. Our bodies can take a little while to react to what we have eaten. And I think we need to look at that sort of longevity of the scales, almost if we could get to a point where we weighed ourselves no more than weekly and maybe even less frequently and actually used other things to gauge how we were feeling, that would be really good. It's almost like the scales become our sort of like, I don't know, sort of like a sort of guilty mentor in some ways. We're expecting the scales to say something to us or to not say something to us, when actually we need to rely on ourselves, I think a little bit more. Sometimes you can put a little bit, some foods can cause you to retain more fluid. So you might see an increase in the scales where you hadn't necessarily anticipated one. Sometimes, depending on the time of day, what you're eating, how much you're eating, whether you're being active, whether you're moving, all of those things will make a difference to what happens when we eat. So it's not just about the food, it's about whether we're sleeping, how stressed we are, how our activity levels are, what's going on in terms of our muscle mass. All of these things make such a big difference. And that's why we have a whole series of webinars, because actually we've got a whole series of webinars about all of these different factors. So I would just say, look at your whole body as an overall, maybe get trends. There may be certain foods that work really well for you to help you lose weight and certain foods that actually just get in your way, and take it that way, I would say.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's really important. Yeah, you are going to, and you should expect to get those peaks, and you are going to get some increases and decreases as you go along your weight loss journey. So don't be demotivated when your weight might increase slightly. Like Ruth said, it might just be about adjusting something in your diet or your lifestyle, or you might have just had a bad week, which is fine. You can pick yourself up the following week. It's not, don't let that demotivate you from going forward.
Somebody's saying that they find meals without meat protein a little less complete and unsatisfying to themselves. It might be just a lack of familiarity on what you're cooking. So it's a great question because I don't think we get asked enough about this. I try and cook a couple of vegetarian meals a week and really find them satisfying, but I always add in loads of veggies. I do all sorts of roasted vegetables with lovely spices and flavors, pulses, just really delicious chickpeas, tofu, the whole gambit really, and don't come away feeling unsatisfied. So it might be how you're approaching that. Maybe really have a look at a couple of recipes and see if there's anything that inspires you. I don't know if you're already doing that. You may be. And are you eating enough? I think to obtain enough protein from those vegetarian sources, you might need to eat a little bit more than you would if you're eating a sort of meat-based meal. Any top tips from you, Sanam?
No, I think it can be quite difficult when you're quite used to having that meat, and whether it's psychologically you feel that you have to have that meat with each meal. It is, I think, though, like chickpeas and things like that do give plenty of protein within that, but it's just adding those vegetables and just making it maybe a lot of eating more than what you would usually eat in regards to that. But I think it can completely be done. I mean, just don't, it doesn't have to be every day, remember.
Exactly. Just maybe try it once a week and see if you can find a way of really enjoying that and not feeling deprived. We don't want you feeling hungry after a meal. Maybe add in some nuts as a dessert or some nuts and some fruit or something to make sure that you're feeling really satisfied when you finish. Somebody's asking for the screenshots after the webinar. We won't be sharing the screenshots, but what we will share with anyone who's registered for the webinar is a link to watch the recording of the webinar so you can re-watch in your own time. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. I really hope that helps. Okay, somebody's saying that they don't. This is a great question. There's some great questions. Loving your questions today. I don't normally eat breakfast. We're starting ruin the diet. We're all really different, aren't we, Sanam? So some people, what I have found is women specifically, well, for all of us, men and women, but at different life stages, we need a different approach to eating. I think a great place to start is by having like a 12-hour window of fasting overnight. So you finish eating by 7 or 8 in the evening and you start eating by 7 or 8 the following morning, and you have that break of 12 hours. In terms of balancing your blood sugar, if you're eating no breakfast and you're feeling really strong, really healthy, really satisfied, you're not craving, you're not overeating in the meals that you are eating, you're not finding you're really hungry in the evening, then that's working for you. If, though, you're eating 2 meals a day and you're feeling really hungry, you're getting cravings, your energy's poor, your sleep's disturbed, it's really worth just going back to the drawing board and thinking about, okay, something's not working for me here. Let's try adding in a very gentle, small breakfast, a really mindful amount of food, something that's really going to sustain me. So put that balanced plate into your breakfast bowl or your breakfast plate. Really make it balanced. Eat it mindfully. Don't finish the whole meal if you're full. Eat what you need and see if that holds your energy better. This might take a whole week to figure out, so don't expect to know immediately. Just take the time, really listen and tune into yourself. One of the things we could share with you, Julia, is food and symptom diary. That can be a great way of just really tracking what's going on for you in terms of your mood, your energy, and maybe you want to put your weight on there or your cravings, whatever is relevant for you, and see if that might help you pinpoint which way of eating is going to work best for you. Yeah, great. Sarah, a really great question about weight loss medication. Somebody saying, can they stay on the same dose for 3 to 4 months if they feel okay and they're still losing weight on that dose?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. You can continue on that stable dose as long as you're losing, like you said, we don't want rapid weight loss. What we want you to be doing is having that gradual, sustainable weight loss. So that way you'll keep it off for longer and it's perfectly fine to stay on the same dose as long as you're feeling fine on it, working for you. Brilliant.
Brilliantly. And next question, which is very similar but slightly different. So somebody started taking Manjaro towards the end of the year last year and increased their dose for the first time a week ago, but now are really struggling to eat. I think this is really relevant to anybody who's on a weight loss medication, so really worth us answering this. You feel full all of the time, and so not getting anywhere enough calories or nutrition each day. What advice would we give?
Yeah, with those ones, if you are feeling that you can't eat, it might be that you actually need to drop back down to the lower dose again. If there was a reason why you increase, or whether your weight loss is stalled, you will get weight loss stalls, and that happens throughout the weight loss journey. You do get those plateaus. If you on the lower dose, you were feeling full and you were feeling fine, and it was restricting your sort of intake of food enough, you don't really then need to increase. It could be just be that you've got a weight loss plateau. It was maybe a dose increase that you needed. If you are finding that, you were feeling a lot hungry on the lower dose and you do want to increase your dose and you're not eating enough, suggest sort of eating smaller amounts throughout the day, just trying to spread that out and actually trying to increase that and see how you go for maybe a few weeks. If you're finding that actually this is persisting, then it unfortunately might mean that you need to drop back down to a lower dose because we need you to still get those nutrients, and you won't get those nutrients if you're not eating a lot. So you do need to sort of figure out, maybe try it for a few weeks because it can be, once you increase your dose, you might take a bit of a while to get used to it, but we don't want you to be malnourished by the end of it either. So that's probably not an idea. It might be that you need a dose decrease.
Very much so. Totally agree with all of that. Somebody's asking whether there's any benefit in taking creatine as a supplement. And actually, we've just started looking at the research around creatine. So I would say what the research suggests is if you're doing some resistance training or some sort of like training whereby you're working on building strength in your muscles, creatine can be helpful and can help to promote that sort of effect from your sort of resistance training or strength training. The research also suggests if you're just taking it for weight loss but not doing all of those other aspects, it generally isn't found to have any real positive impact. So, sort of in certain circumstances, it can be helpful, and it's not recommended for people who are pregnant or who are breastfeeding or those with kidney disease. So, if any of those conditions apply to you, then we would recommend that you don't consider it. Yeah. So the point about delayed reaction on the scales is that I can't tell what foods, exercise, sleep, etc. is helping me lose weight. I only weigh myself once a week at the same time in the morning. Maybe I should weigh myself once a month as it's not telling me anything useful. That's a really great point, I think. And maybe give that a go. Maybe also do the food and symptom diary and just keep an eye on what's making you feel good. And maybe if there are foods in there that make you feel less great. Um, Somebody's saying that they're up multiple times a night to go to the toilet because they're trying to hydrate more. I think that is a common problem. I understand that that happens in the initial phases of increasing your hydration and should settle down. Any thoughts on that, Sanam?
Yeah, I think initially that your body's not used to it, your bladder's not used to having all that higher intake of water. That should really settle once you sort of, and try and do if you find that you're drinking more in the evening, so try and drink earlier on and throughout the day, and spread it out so you're not having, because a lot of the time you might just be busy during the day. Like I find sometimes I'll drink more in the evenings, which isn't ideal. Again, you'll be up going to the loo, but what I try to do is sort of spread it out from the morning up, and so be conscious of, I need to have a drink, I need to drink some more, and just do that spread out throughout the day. And that gives less of an impact on your bladder and you having to constantly get up at night, probably.
Yeah. Somebody's asking about going on a sardine only diet for 3 days on a monthly basis. I really haven't read anything that would suggest that as an option or something that we would recommend. We generally don't go for sort of very extreme options in terms of what we want is for everybody to do things that they can follow 90% of the time without having to really feel overwhelmed. Personally, I think I'd find it really difficult to eat sardines only for 3 days. But if you were going to love that and it was something that you enjoyed, then give it a go. Give it a go. Somebody's trying to hit their fiber and protein goals, however, they find that their fat content is always higher than recommended. Can we recommend any low fat alternatives? Generally, we would recommend sort of like a full fat version, generally speaking, with dairy products, maybe the lower, the 5% fat versions. But, from a healthy food perspective, the sort of oily fish, the nuts, the seeds, they have fats in them. We don't want you to avoid that fat. If you're getting high levels of saturated fat because you're cooking with fats, then that might be a way to bring your fat content down. Or if you're choosing meats that are higher in saturated fat, again, that might be something that could help you to reduce the fat in your foods or in your diet. Just have a look at that core meal plan and maybe try and plan your plate around that and see if that helps bring that fat level down or the percentage down naturally. And let us know. We'll see what we can do, figure out for you. Cool. Good question. How much weight should you aim to lose in 3 months safely? Our general rule of thumb is 1 to 2 pounds a week. If you have significant, depending on where you start on your weight loss journey, if you're sort of starting with a BMI that's sort of over 38, then we may expect you to have accelerated weight loss in those first months or so. But once you're sort of into maybe a BMI of 34, 35, or between that and 25, we would really be wanting you to aim for about 1 to 2 pounds a week as a safe, continuous sort of weight loss. And obviously, that again isn't going to be linear. So it might be that 1 week you won't see any weight loss on the scales, and the next week you'll see 2 pounds. That's absolutely fine because, again, as you were saying just now, Sanam, your body just ebbs and flows a little bit, doesn't it?
And also, initially, a lot of people, when you start on a weight loss journey, tend to lose a lot more initially and then get quite demotivated when it sort of levels off. But that leveling off is expected and is what most people tend to get. So you might lose a little bit more initially, but don't be discouraged if you do level off.
This is an interesting question and might be relevant to lots of people who are on weight loss medications. They've been advised to cut out sulfur-rich eggs because they are having sulfur burps as a result of taking Wegovy. Is there anything else we could advise on how to incorporate eggs without getting side effects? Because that's one of their main protein sources. Sanam, any thoughts on that from you?
I haven't heard with the reducing the sulfur. Oh, sorry, eggs in the diet. What you could do is try to reduce maybe like if you're having two, three eggs a day. So maybe try and spread it out rather than having it all maybe for breakfast or something. Or maybe just think of something else, like we said, like maybe have a look at the protein sheet and see what other variety you can add into your diet as well. Because like we said, to get that sort of help with that gut microbiome and also help with the nutrients, stuff like adding beans and lentils and things like that as a protein source is quite important. So if you are eating just eggs and getting sulfur bursts, probably an idea maybe just to change up the proteins that you're eating and maybe reduce the amount of only egg-based sort of meals that you're having.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking in the chat box now. We've got a few questions, thanks, Julia, that you've consolidated at the bottom, so we'll pick up on those. Um, in the eating guide, it says swap jacket potatoes for new potatoes, just wondering why. So we would recommend sort of swapping across to the new potatoes just because they're lower in terms of the amount of starch they have in them. So the impact on your blood sugar is less than a jacket potato. A small jacket potato would be fine, keep the skin on, combine it with protein. But if you want to be eating in a sort of lower glycemic way to have less of an impact on your blood sugar, then switch over to either a sweet potato or a couple of new potatoes. Also, quantity of potato you need to be thinking about. We often find that the jacket potatoes tend to be larger, so really think about that. Next question. Is it advised of medical guidelines to increase the time between doses, or is it advised to stop taking it once I get to goal? Great question. So thinking about maintenance and what we recommend in terms of weight loss medications. Is that something that we would recommend people to write in and ask for that advice, do you think, Sanam?
Yeah, I think it really will depend individually. So this will vary the advice that we offer, depending on what we see, sort of like your weight loss.
I think
journey has been, and yeah, so it will be very individualized, I think.
what we'd recommend is if you're a Beats Online Doctor customer to use your messaging system and email into us, and we will pick up that question and give you some personalized advice. And that's probably the right way to go. People are asking which margarine spread I should be buying. I normally use Flora, but not sure if that's okay. Any thoughts on that, Sanam? I tend to go for an olive based.
Yeah, you've got olive-based, you've got the plant-based ones as well. You can get quite commonly, and normally check for like the saturated, unsaturated fats in the content in there as well. But they've got a lot of like vegetable sort of type based spreads and olive oil based ones as well.
Okay. Somebody's asking if diluting juice is okay to drink throughout the day or not, and why not squash? Again, this is all back to the impact that that may be having on your blood sugar. We know that even a little bit of squash that tastes sweet or a little bit of a diet soda that tastes sweet will be telling your body that it's receiving something sweet. So physiologically, you'll have the same response to having eaten something sweet. You'll be producing more insulin. And one of the things we want to be managing is that insulin. So I would recommend cutting that juice down as much as you can and really using fruit in your water to bring the flavour and moving away from diluting the juice. And that can just be a process. You can say, right, by the end of January, I'm not going to be having juice in my water. I'm going to gradually move over to fruit in my juice as a flavour. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It can be a gradual change. And I think sometimes we need that change to be gradual. Um, I'm not sure about this question. When is the right, I know this question, sorry, I've seen another question. When is the right time to stop taking weight loss medication such as Manjaro? Again, that's probably a personalised question, Sanam.
Yeah, I think it would, when the exact time will be a bit more of a personalized approach, but just do think about when you do want to stop Manjaro, you want to make sure, really important, that you have those lifestyle factors and your meal plan well underway and you're actually sort of like, on a new eating, you have got new eating habits which you can maintain, which is what we're trying to sort of achieve from this, is make sure that you do have the sustainable meal plans in place before you do decide to stop taking Manjaro. But again, that it would depend on your current weight and various other factors, whether we advise you stop taking it or not.
Yeah, somebody's saying they're thinking about coming off their weight loss medication, but they don't trust themselves with their habits yet. That's really, you're so not alone, and that's really honest and really helpful for us to hear because we know that that happens, and it happens. We're human, so we don't trust ourselves sometimes too. But don't forget, we are the stories we tell ourselves. So the more you tell yourself that you don't trust yourself, or the more you tell yourself, I can't do this without Manjaro, it's going to be very hard to manage it. So we do need to start changing that message to ourselves. Come along to the webinars. We've got the whole mindset webinar next week, the whole how to eat webinar. Come for as many weeks as you can. Come repeat. Just do whatever it takes. And, if you're one of our customers or whoever your weight loss medication provider is, just email in to ask for some advice around that as well. Each person's story is different. So, you can't see what's categorically one person should do is right for another. So, yeah. Somebody's asking about the mineral you advise, please. I don't think we specifically talked about any mineral today. There are a whole host of different minerals. So I think you mentioned a few in one of the foods. If there's something specific you're trying to manage, then that's maybe relevant. Somebody's mentioning hair loss. We know that hair loss can be a side effect of weight loss, not necessarily just weight loss medications. And it's often a suggestion that perhaps you're just a little bit less well nourished. So it's really worth putting that attention into your food and into what you're eating. So, and the recording will be made available. We will send this through to our IT support team and they will be uploading it to anybody who's registered for today's webinar. So, any last thoughts? Anything we've missed, Sanam? Anything we've missed, Julia?
Got one Manuka honey in herbal teas. With that one. It's with Manuka honey, we still would have that sugar content. It is obviously a lower glycemic sugar. So if at some point it's probably better than sugar, refined sugar, but actually you're still going to get those
Yeah.
sugar spikes and stuff. So probably would avoid it if you can. And herbal teas, was you might want to try maybe fruit teas, which tend to be a little bit sweeter, so you don't feel like you actually need that sugar content in there.
You can also drink those cold. So somebody just mentioned dash waters with sparkling water and fruit extracts. Think about where you are and where you want to get to, and anything along those lines can be helpful. Somebody's asking about electrolytes for nausea. I don't think I've read anything specifically about that, but maybe some ginger in tea would be helpful to drink, just or maybe some root ginger and some hot water just can be helpful for some people for nausea. Um, and if you're experiencing that regularly and you're on a weight loss medication, please do write in. We will give you some specific advice. Great. So, Sanam, thank you so much. That feels like it's been a great webinar today. I hope it's been helpful to everybody who's been here. Thank you so much for your time. We will be back at 1 o'clock next week. So, have a great week, everyone. We will be rooting for you 100%. And we've loved having you with us. And thank you to Sanam for being with us today. It's been great having you here, Sanam. And thank you to Julia for all of your support and help as well. Bye, everyone.